are these people?
This is a subject that like we're not really willing to talk about, but it's since like we're like kind of like getting like slammed by like public figures back and forth about
that means you're over the target though. I have the gift. I'm not sure what it is.
Let me
a lot of these people just feel like I tweet at them thinking they're not gonna listen to me, and then they respond back to me. So
yeah. So like I mean for context, I just want to bring this up. You did quote on Twitter. I was the attacks on Cornel West are not necessarily going to come from the right or from the Democratic Party. It will come from principled leftists. The Democratic Party will plant people on the left to go after Cornel West. He says that's a clear misquote. That's the exact opposite of my point. I said I'm calling principled leftist ops, but we have to be careful about the DNC planting attackers on the left. Feel free to criticize, but don't put words in my mouth when the video is right there. You follow up with the receipt.
Infiltration. I see the problem of infiltration very differently, Savvy. I was warned early on. The attacks against Dr. West are not necessarily going to come from the right, and they're not necessarily going to come from the Democratic Party. They may come from places you don't expect them to come. And so that concerns me too. One of the reasons I'm here for solidarity and unity is what we don't want to happen is attacks on Dr. West from principled leftists. I'm not saying anybody's an op or anybody's planted or all that. I take criticism to heart. I believe you mean what you say and you have fair criticism. But we have to be very careful because if the Democratic Party is going to infiltrate, what they're going to do is they're going to plant people on the left to go after Dr. West. And so that's the nefarious ways in which they work. So to me, it's not somebody's going to come to the campaign and convince Dr. West to become a different person. That's not how this stuff works. This stuff is shady. It's under the scenes. It's somebody who you think is your friend is now not your friend. It's somebody, the mainstream media, a reporter who's neutral. I had that experience today, suddenly pushing
independence, maybe people with an open mind.
Pushing all these anti-West talking points to you and then pushing them in the mainstream media. It's going to be like a systemic way in which they try to stop him from every different direction.
So can I ask you all, what did I say that was wrong? Because there were two people that
I mean, you redacted maybe like a sentence.
Yeah,
that's it.
I mean, I did.
You put the ellipses in there.
Yeah,
you did.
I did in terms of like trying to fit it in within the character mark, but essentially, he did say DNC infiltration, if it occurs, is going to come from people on the left. So how is that not divisive? So basically, now you can argue he can mean people on the left, meaning Democrats. I don't think that's what he means.
I don't think that's what he means either.
Leftist op, like
he's saying that people outside of establishment left. What it sounds like to me anyway is that he's saying that from people who are left outside of the establishment left, that we're just a bunch of people who are just purity testing everything, and that we should stop that shit. That's how it kind of feels like to me. This whole like principled left. It's like, oh, you mean the people who actually like will call out the DNC and call out Biden on his bullshit? Oh, that principled left? You think we're like we're not supposed to have like our voice isn't valid? I don't know. It feels like he's directly attacking people who are outside of the establishment.
Right, and he claims, and he kind of made the case like, oh, I'm looking for solidarity, but on the other side of his mouth, the people that I think this is based, and I kind of saw this over the weekend with some other people online. They were just kind of like, shut up, like we don't care about your concerns about Peter Daou. We need Cornel West to run green. Fuck your opinion. Fuck your critique. Like, follow Cornel. That's basically what it felt like. And to me, it was just like, if you guys are falling for this for the third fucking time in terms of like
I'm having Green Party people come after me. They're using like Democrat light tactics.
Dude, you got the Midwestern Marx take.
That's what I'm like. Yeah, that's what I just have right
great.
Here. like right here, and it's a good thing Collin actually got this. In order to prove that Jimmy's correct, Jimmy needs to prove that Dow's an infiltrator. He's just assuming so. Also, don't to the point just using your platform over 1 million subs to attack a third-party candidate like this. Who's the better option? Who's the better option than Cornel, Jimmy? Huh? Who's the? And I said, this is what I said. Like, this is a group of Marxists participating in probably the most cynical form of lesser evilism I've ever seen in my entire life. Literally, like Democrat light, like what? Oh yeah, like
what else are you gonna vote for? Yeah.
What's your plan? Remember that? Like, when I heard this, like I got like the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, what's your plan? What's your plan? I'm like,
you know what?
Again.
You know what? And I will say this to Eddie, like, because I was talking about this with Indy this morning. Nico House, shout out to him, could be campaign manager. He was an advisor to Tulsi's campaign. So if anything, he's way more qualified to do the job than Peter Daou is. But I know, and this is where I want to call out the hypocrisy of some people. Let's just imagine that if Nico House ended up being Cornel West's campaign manager, can you imagine the shit ton of hate that Nico will get on account of his past connected to Tulsi, that he was connected to Jack Roosevelt. A lot of these people who are kind of being like, oh, like Peter Daou is our best option right now, will go off on Nico if they got the chance. So
they would flip it. You're right.
So, and we can make the same argument that he's qualified. He's actually done the job. Probably in a lot stronger way.
He didn't run freaking Hillary's campaign for one.
Do you think Jill just made like a lazy mistake, or do you think like she's like this is like a deliberate like safe option? Is what you're saying?
I think this is like PMC brain in terms of like we've seen this like in the professional world, like. You have to have the right degree. You have to be around the right. I see this all the time. Like, you have to have the right degree. You have to be around. You have to have worked in the right places in order for you to get the job. I think for Jill, like I think it was just out of convenience, just given he's just been around the circles. Like
I'm pretty sure he. You don't think that's the case?
What?
I'm pretty sure like Peter walked up to Jill or walked up to Cornel or like, contacted them and said, let me manage your campaign. I'll do it.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, and that's funny too, because I think that's one of Cornel's kind of weaknesses in a way is that like, he had Branna freaking court him for.
He basically recruited
the campaign. Yeah. Branna was like, oh, let's fucking boost the MPP. Like, let me manage your campaign. And that went south super quick. And and you heard West the other day, what was it, on Door's interview? Like, I speak for myself. I'm my own man sort of thing. But clearly he gets influenced pretty easily by people in powerful positions. And I think that's kind of what happened with him and Daou.
Yeah.
It's not about really, it's not even about Cornel. Cornel's fine. It's just he's a little bit of like a weaker candidate in I think a lot of other people's opinions, but like that's just like his personality. Definitely he could bring a lot more flair to it. But like we're finding ourselves into a point where like I'll be proud to show it. Here I am getting fucking ratioed by Midwestern Marks, Eddie Liger. Who's calling me? He's like, you can vote for whoever you want, but don't vote at all, douchebag. I don't really care.
No,
because that's really solidarity language right there. You know
what? That's bullshit. Because if you're looking to increase and
this is how they run. This is how they run a third party. This is how they run. This is how they run a third party campaign.
Right.
Oh, then just don't vote. I don't care.
Peter said on Saturday that his priorities is like helping the oppressed within the working class, which what does that mean? Like, and climate change. Again, like I would argue that the economy should be the number one issue that you guys tackle. But more importantly, the number one issue you guys should be tackling is what strategies are you going to formulate to be able to get to that at least 5%? Because voting green is not popular. I live in DC, and I know plenty of people in my arena who know about Cornel West are not going to vote for him. So
just because of the rules, the 5% rule, the 15%.
no,
rule.
but it's just
We don't
like
even
they
know.
don't.
We
It's
don't
the
even know
idea
if
of
he's the
voting
primary.
outside. It's the idea of voting outside the duopoly. They don't see the benefit of, like, and a lot of there's a lot of propaganda in terms of, Biden and Trump, that we have to go with the stronger candidate who allegedly is Biden. Like, I know plenty of people like that who may like Cornel West, respect Cornel West, but they're not going to vote for him. And given what Peter is saying, it's like, oh, DNC is saying like the infiltration is going to come from people on the left. You just lost a ton of people right there, the very people that will go to bat for Cornel West.
Right.
If you came up with a plan.
You lost me on Peter Daou. I'm sorry. You lost me on Peter Daou. And that was a non-negotiable. We have plenty of. It's not like as complicated, and like they're making it seem like way more complex than it already is.
Well, it's like Collin was saying about it's kind of PMC brain. Like it's all the credentialism. He's the right person to do it.
Right. It's like you can't think outside the box and find like, look, I live in DC. I know plenty of people who've worked on local campaigns who can't. Now, granted, they're shitlibs, but like you're telling me you cannot find like an up and comer that you can hire to kind of or someone with talent or is looking for that opportunity to take that on. Like it's almost kind of like, and I know even
it's so cynical.
Like the idea, like
I see Bree on this list. Bree would have been better.
Bree was saying was, like campaign managers who work nationally are so far, which might be true. I don't think that's not. I don't necessarily want people to lie about that, but like, why we try and recycle the same people who are usually on these campaigns, mostly for the Democratic Party, and especially with Peter, given his history, like you should have been well aware that was going to not make people happy. And the fact that Pete, responded to me, I think because he saw the viewership on my tweet, that he figured, oh, I better respond to this. It kind of shows like, like, you should be trying to engage people in a way and kind of convince them that you're trustworthy enough that people would be willing to vote for vote green, but 2, vote for Cornel West. Like, that does not give me or other people like I know online any confidence that Peter is a good working in good faith, and by association, Cornel West.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a great point.
The reason I wanted to like put this together, the reason I invited you, the reason I wanted to put this together, because like I just wanted to make it clear that it's like, yes, we're anti-electoralism, and yes, we're anti-duopoly, and yes, we do support independence, and independent candidates can be a good thing. We're not saying that we actually want Cornel West's campaign to succeed. We want to see it to be effective, and in order to be effective, you have to not make terrible choices like this.
Look, not even that, but like I'm a transactional voter. Like, I'm not giving my support to Cornel. Like, we're a year out. Like, and people already are like, oh, I'm all in. Fine, if you're all in. But I'm kind of like, I haven't seen anything from him yet, especially given like what I just said. And like, what is your plan to break that 5% benchmark? Like, what is the plan to be able to do that? How are you going to, first of all, making sure that you aren't enough ballots in certain states to be able to try and crack through. But then like, it's one thing on the left. I think he's going to get enough people on the left generally to support him. What about the regular schmegular person who is not online, who's not very familiar with Cornel West? How are you going to make yourself a viable candidate in comparison to Trump and Biden potentially? Like, what is going to make you stand out between those two that will make it worthwhile? People will vote for you.
If you're not 100%
that I'm not necessarily hearing yet. And so for me, it's like I'm not confident yet to be able to give my support to Cornel West right now.
No,
totally reasonable.
Their voter outreach is literally like, if you disagree with anything, then fuck you, just don't vote. That's their voter outreach, and that's not a campaign. That's not a campaign that you can run and be effective. And we would like to see a third-party campaign be effective, but it's just like we don't. After being sold out by Bernie twice, the last thing I want to see, is
More
to have
sheep
an
talking.
entire left community demoralized again by another shitty election that doesn't mean anything and that we wasted our time on from the beginning. So I'm tired. I'm tired of fighting over this. If you want to call me a douchebag, fuck you, don't vote. I'm probably not going to vote. Fine, I won't vote then. You lost that, but this is how you're going to lose people. And don't expect to get 5%.
So
don't expect to win a campaign, and don't expect to have a lot of support. I'm sorry, but this is and again.
So I have a question.
I don't want to fight with these people. I don't want to be aggressive. We're trying to have hyper aware and hypercritical mind, because after fool me twice, if you're getting screwed twice, you have to be aware. When you're in this space, you have to be hypercritical and hyper aware of what's going on, because we saw how Bernie got sold out. We saw how Tulsi got sold out. We see the game. We know the game. We just have to play around it if we really want to do it. But
so I want to back up really quick to something that Collin said earlier that I think I just want to dive a little bit more into it. So you said, and I agree with you, that just on principle, just on face value, Daou being West campaign manager was going to make a lot of people unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, you could also argue that West knew that it was going to make a lot of people unhappy. So at what point are we supposed to just assume that they're just sheepdogs?
Well,
or at what point are they supposed to come out and prove to themselves?
I said this to Indy earlier, and Reef, the fact that there was all this chaos over the weekend, Jill did not address it at all. Dr. West did not address it at all.
Right.
It's kind of fuck y'all. We're just going to do what we're going to do.
Don't
and
vote.
You're going to it. No explanation, no giving tangibles as to comforting people in terms of their concerns and offering tangible actions that they're going to do in the campaign to convince people, okay, I can feel a little better about this. There was none of that at all over the weekend.
Why wouldn't Daou give us some explanation about Clinton in contrast to West, and why being a Clinton campaign manager is good for him as a West campaign manager? And also, I didn't know about that history of him with the IDF, and people pulled that shit out within freaking hours of him announcing campaign. And that was amazing.
Timeline lines up way too perfectly. He's conscripted military age, but yeah.
Look, but you know what? Here's the thing at the end of the day.
I know he denied it, but
after having this conversation with you all, I'm not going to speak about this again, because
I know.
Right now
we're not either. We're on the same page here.
If you want to know how I feel about it, refer to this once you put this out. But here's my view. Look, I'm a transactional voter. We're stuck with Daou regardless. So I'm just going to be watching like a fucking hawk and just being like, look,
we're a year away.
Cornel West, as of now, has to win my vote. And right now, again, it's a year out. I don't really, you should be having these candidates sweat to the idea of being like, what do I need to do in order to convince you that I am worthwhile voting for me? Like, you really shouldn't be able to kind of let them know until the fucking last minute, just before you go to the polls. Like,
right,
whether you're going to vote for them or not. I'm not going to just guarantee my vote willy-nilly a year out. Like, especially since right now I haven't heard much from Cornel in terms of what he's going to offer that's going to be counter to the duopoly. And I'm saying this, I respect Dr. West as a professor.
Me too. I like Dr. West.
And a leader within, you know, the Black Civil Rights Movement. I've respected him for years. But that being said, he's not fallible. Like, he has his blind spots just like we all. And if he's not willing to speak on the issues, to be concerned about the issues people have, that will convince people that, you know, that he is worth a shot, And again, this is the idea of like, you're talking about movement. And I'm already seeing that people are like, Cornel West is our last hope. Like, he's the one. No,
Bernie
like,
around
no, that's basically the
Why?
language that you're using with Bernie. Like, Cornel West
Exactly,
would not be the
exactly.
point person to start any movement. We've seen what has been happening in Africa. Like, and I've been reporting this on INN News quite extensively over the last few weeks. That's not happening due to, you know, the leadership that is there. If anything, the people kick the leadership out. You know, so any movement has to happen from us. And if
Right.
and this is what I'm going to say to people: if you're going to rely on Cornel West, fine. But I hope that you're doing the work on the ground to be able to kind of get that movement going in spite of. Because if he doesn't win by miracle, or at best, if he doesn't get that 5%, what are you going to do? And meanwhile, people are still going to be struggling or whatever else. Like, people need help now. And I said this online, you know, I think that's a fault of independent media in a sense, because people are frustrated and
We all
people
hop
are
on it.
frustrated and like they don't know what they can do in terms of helping the situation, in terms of leading movements or whatever else, that they are going to vent on Twitter. And I feel like that's a fault in some ways of
I think
independent
that's a fair
media
critique.
not giving these options to people as to what they can do. Like, all is basically talked about in independent media is drama and the personalities and the beats and all the clicks and all the like enough everywhere else. We need to be encouraging people. We need to be educating people of what you can do locally on the ground in your state to be able to kind of make that movement happen. Movements take time to develop. And the fact that people are like, this can happen well within a year is really disingenuous and very unrealistic. We need to think about what we need to be doing long term.
For our children.
Right. That
Yeah.
does not include Cornel West.
Right.
It's much bigger than that. That's why like, and also part of this segment, I want to like make sure that, like, you know, we're all on the same page here about focusing on community building and focusing on what we can do as people instead of relying on superheroes or candidates or
Idols.
any of these people to come in and save the day, because we learned this lesson. And we see this stuff happening in Maui. We see a lot of mutual aid happening. You know, unfortunately not as much as we should, but you know, unfortunately, when it gets to like a certain point, you know, when every American city becomes like East Palestine, you know, that's the government's not going to help you. Like, we're going to have to rely on each other. So we're living it. We're trying to fix. We're trying to prevent a potential fascism when the fascism is already here.
Yeah, exactly. And to Colin's point earlier is that we're just trying to figure out how to educate everybody, and I feel like that drives a lot of conflict because, you know, we all just, most of our lives have just been like taking in whatever's on the TV or whatever's in, you know, we got taught in schools and stuff like that, and so we have like a pretty bad analysis. And I know you're a teacher, and I bet you're red pilling your students at a younger age a little bit better than probably my teachers were. But I think, like, and that's kind of why I kind of do my show on Thursday with a little bit more theory to it, because I think, like, you're right, like, we need to come from kind of this base understanding of how fucked everything is before we try and like grow out of it and figure out what a movement is actually going to look like. And like you said, the movement has to start with us. It doesn't start with an idol.
Right.
You know, it doesn't start with Cornel West.
And
It doesn't start with an
movements,
AOC.
according to like some data that I looked at, take between 5 to 10 years to fully develop. So it's not going to be just a year thing with Dr. West that this revolution is going to come. This needs to be, this honestly, and I'll say this real quick. This is my frustration with the Greens, just generally.
Mm-hmm.
You had a great opportunity since
Like
2016 to develop an upward swell that right now you should not even be worried about the idea of getting 5%. that should be on lock right now. But what have they done since 2016? Not a damn thing. And I blame the National Green Party for that, because they just kind of, and I think a lot of it is lack of money, but then like, you know, like a lack of enthusiasm, like, and the fact that
But
now
there's also infiltration and like poor
Right.
decisions.
right,
Right.
and it's like the fact that we have Howie Hawkins as like a candidate back in 2020, like,
And he's CIA. He's literally CIA. Howie Hawkins.
Right.
Yeah.
and now we have Cornel West again. I love him, but it just seems like they're
I
trying
love
to fly the plane as they're building it at the same time. Like, House is
It's a
like,
good analogy. Good
like,
analogy.
where's
We
the
just stopped the climate.
communications director? Like, Peter Daou should not be necessarily be making the case for Cornell like he is. That was Bree's job when she was with Bernie. Like,
Right.
so where is that person? Like, it's Daou
And that's
taking that?
and that's one of the things I don't understand. Like why I know Brianna's got like her thing and she's got her show and all that stuff. Like, it seems like her as a campaign manager would have been a much more natural decision for Cornel West than Peter Daou. Like, that was
Right.
the first person I thought of.
I
Like,
don't know.
But I
Brianna
don't
Joy
think-
Gray like makes
I don't
perfect
think.
sense.
Well,
Your Dow was just too
I
convenient.
don't think she would want to do it, honestly, because
Well, no, because she has her successful show. Like, why
Right.
would she invest all that time and energy into a losing campaign?
No way.
You know, like, I understand why she wouldn't want to do it, but I can make the argument
Chris
that she'd be a
Hedges?
better campaign manager.
Chris Hedges like worked alongside Ralph Nader the entire time.
And that was
He-
another
he
thing that was weird to me is I remember when
He definitely knows campaign, but that's beside the point.
do you
like,
do you remember
I don't
when
want to drive off.
yeah, we kind of get a lost subject, but I thought originally Chris Hedges was going to be Cornel West's campaign manager because they had that meeting with Brianna Joy Gray that one time. I was like, oh, great, like Chris Hedges being Cornel West. It's like I have issues with everybody, but that would have been a step up from Dow, you know. Like,
like 100 times, yeah, hell yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's just it's an unfortunate situation that they won't even give us an excuse or try and explain themselves for that decision. It's just like, oh, vote for Cornel West no matter what,
right?
You know.
Yeah. So I'm, and like I said, people are going to do what they're going to do regardless. I know what I'm going to do, and as I said online, I'm just going to work with my students and work on my local stuff, and then just call it a day. Like, and I'll just watch what's happening on the offside, and I might very well vote for Cornel West if he proves himself. Like, that's still an option, but again, it's a year out. Yeah. I don't have to make that decision.
You don't have to pledge your vote until the first week and day before, like whatever. Right. It doesn't matter.
So I just will be curious to see what tangible steps they're going to do in terms of gaining the votes of people that are not inundated in this space. That would be the interesting thing to me, because according to Peter, not to say that's not a focus, but he didn't make that a priority in Savvy's interview. You know, like, that would be my first concern, is how are you going to break that 5%? And how are you going to reach out to people who may never have voted green before? Like, how are you going to convince those regular people to convince them, like, don't vote within the duopoly, vote for Cornel West, and we will at least guarantee that this could be, you're making that investment in terms of having a better future for yourself and the generations that are coming after you. Like,
and that even speaks to a bigger thing, that there's like 100 million people who don't vote. Like, why aren't they trying to go after those people instead of going after the DNC lights? Like, there's this whole group of people who are unaffiliated and don't give a fuck to begin with. Like, why not try and tell them that there's a better option? It's just like, it just feels like they're just trying to go after vote blue types.
Yeah,
that's not going to end well.
Really, I just feel like right now is people who are just disenchanted with both parties, and I wouldn't say necessarily the working class who don't vote. So, but as I said, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I feel like I have to keep saying that. That's my opinion, and I'm open to kind of seeing where this goes. So I hope this kind of clarifies, like, my tweet
Yeah,
and
like we're
everything
not like
that was
attacking
said.
Dr. West. I don't want I don't want to like make
Nobody's
I
attacking
don't
you. Listen, it's
like
okay
Dr.
to
West
recognize
channel.
the
We're
academic.
not the Dr. West hate channel, okay? That's not.
It's
it,
like what we were
okay?
saying earlier
Just
with
pointing out
Soros.
clear mistakes.
You know,
That's
you
it.
can separate the academic West, who's like very intelligent and has a lot of knowledge to impart and wisdom to impart on us, and separate that person, the academic, from the presidential candidate Cornel West, who doesn't really know what the fuck he's doing.
Who isn't like as effective.
Yeah. But as I said, I'm just gonna watch and see and continue to tweet. And if you guys don't like, not you guys, but like if people online don't like it, fuck you. No, because look, I'm free to speak my mind. And if you don't like it, tough. If you like it, great. You know, I'm not here online to please. I just tweet as I feel or what I observe or what I think about. And as of right now, as I said, I'm a transactional voter. Like, I'm waiting to see what Cornel West is going to offer me in terms of an investment for the future that will make it worthwhile to me to be like, all right,
Yeah,
like
it's his job
I
to
will
himself.
gladly support you, but I'm not going to do that over the shit I've been doing way before I got into independent media, and probably what I will continue to do afterward. Like,
Right.
the stuff that I've been doing on the day-to-day does not take precedence over Cornel West's national campaign for president. So take that as you will. Not talking about this again.
No, we appreciate you.
We
appreciate you.
I appreciate you
insight.
taking the time to talk about
Don't
it.
worry, like we came up with this whole show. We were coming up with this show. We had a bunch of stuff.
This is a little.
And we were
sweet-
able
this
to
is a little
cross stuff
surprise.
off the
That's
list,
it.
and we didn't. We were like, oh, we don't have to cover this electoral shit today. We don't have to cover this electoral shit today. So like, we thank you for coming on and giving your 2 cents about Dow
Yeah, I
today,
appreciate it.
because I think it's good to kind of clarify that stuff. And at the end of the day, like, we should be comfortable critiquing the process as people who are outside of the deep.
Don't let people shame you into voting for whoever, like, or people being like, oh, then don't vote. Like, don't let people do that. And if people like say that, call the fuck out, because you know that's not building solidarity among the people. And like right now, like the Green Party should be wooing every single vote as possible. So that means you need to meet those concerns of people. You need to assure them that, you know, like what happened in the past is not going to happen again. And you need to give tangible steps as to what you're going to do moving forward to convince people that this is a worthwhile investment, not just in this election, but moving forward. And if they're not doing that, and if you're not asking that, you're not doing yourself a service. And as you said, Greg, perfectly, I don't want people to be as frustrated and depressed as we have seen over the last 8 years of putting your hope and your dreams into candidates that end of the day fuck you over.
Well, and that's another thing we kind of have to recognize is that, like, you know, we've been through, we're old enough to been through at least 3 or 4 national elections to have voted or been able to vote in 3 or 4 elections. And they're reaching out to freaking, you know, 17 and 18-year-olds who don't have the same background as we do and see the same struggle that we had watching Bernie sheepdog in 2 elections. They don't have that context. So it makes it that much harder for us to kind of like convince the demographic that's like, yo, man, you need to kind of like step away from this kind of like duopoly rhetoric.
Yeah, can I speak on that real quick? Like, I was talking to someone
do.
online who was like, oh, Jimmy Dore is a problem and like we need to expose it for the truth. Like, I don't get. Look, Jimmy is a fucking comedian. Like, I don't understand why people are like so infatuated with him to the point that they call him everything but a child of God.
I think he ruined
it. It's only the opposition who have a problem, who are deranged
like,
about it.
Versus someone like Vosh, who I argue is more dangerous. Like, I don't know people in my life who knows who Jimmy Dore is. Like, in my regular life.
Right.
I know children who know who Vosh is.
Yeah.
And given what he talks about in a very subtle way, like playing video games and spews all this shit, like to children and teens, like already getting them in the mindset of thinking in terms of the Democratic Party and all of that. don't you think in your mind that's more dangerous than talking about someone like Jimmy Dore who actively pushes against a duopoly? And at the end of the day, if push came to shove, he would vote for Cornel West if he really needed to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably voting for Cornel still.
Right. But everyone is like, Jimmy Dore sucks and like Jimmy Dore is a problem, whatever else. Like, get off of Twitter and actually talk to people. Like, most people in the world do not know who he is.
Don't know who the fuck he is. Yeah,
like, he doesn't have that kind of power, you know? So,
well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because, like, I'm researching for my show on Thursday about kind of OnlyFans and that sort of stuff, and streamers like Vouch types will have like 10-year-olds on watching their shit, and they'll be promoting or talking about OnlyFans and stuff like that a couple of years later, and now they're promoting that stuff to ostensibly children,
right?
You know, so there's this whole. I think you're absolutely right. That's like who's the real villains we should be kind of going after.
Right. And funny enough, Peter Daou was right to call that out. But the problem is not with me or any one of us here. It's like people like Vosh.
Yeah.
So not me who
or
want
any of them.
Like third-party options or independent options to succeed. Like, I want that to happen in this country. But apparently I'm the problem because I called out your idol.
But yet, if we start critiquing Vosh all the time, now we're just getting into the drama. So there's always this balance.
No, but I think it's important. But I think it's important that, like, to kind of make that notice that people will have a problem platforming Jimmy Dore in their thing, but they'll very easily have Vosh on, and you know who I'm talking about, even when he has said shit about said people. Like, they're still willing to platform him.
Right.
So it makes no sense at all.
Him, Destiny, freaking Vigilant, and freaking Majority Report. And I don't know. Like, I saw that thing that they're actually Destiny and Vosh, etc. They're having like a conference, I think, in like New York or something in the next Baltimore.
Yeah.
And it's like, exactly. It's like these people who are just targeting kids at a really young age and shepherding them into a fascist party at a very young age, and that's way more dangerous than getting wrapped up in fucking Jimmy Dore bullshit. So 100%. I'm with you on that, Collin. Right. So yeah, well, so I think
I don't want to keep you. Well, you probably don't want to stay. But I wanted to extend the invite. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and giving your 2 cents about Daou.
Thank you guys. Thank you for letting me clear the air. Hopefully, people understand. Well, I will say, I will, like, just regard to my tweets. I think generally, and again, I think that kind of shows the community that I've kind of accumulated over the last few years. But I think especially, you know, just I think people generally know of my character at INN and otherwise online that. It was really only bots that were kind of going off on me. Like, the fair majority of people were like, yeah, we actually agree. So, you know, shout out to you all for, like, once again, having my back on that. So, but yeah, like I said, I want good things to happen, but I also am aware that it cannot happen under the coattails of one or a couple of people. We all have a stake in this.
That's
my encouragement to all of you is that don't rely on any politician to do the work that you should be doing regardless. And you will need to continue even your best candidate. Because again, I live in DC. I know a lot of these people who, you know, were, I wouldn't say friends, but more or less acquaintances that talked a good game, and then they'll like go behind policies that are detrimental to people, like within the same, like in complete 180. Like, I've experienced that just personally on the local level. So it's just giving me cause to be like, focus on the people, get the people involved, and build that movement from there. Because any movement that's going to happen has to happen among us, that we can force the politicians to do whatever we need them to do. And unfortunately, that will include Dr. West. So.
Bye.